Welcome to Mount & Blade Bannerlord 2, where I will be going over the various factions, touching on their history, the units, strengths and weaknesses, and some of my own perspectives and opinions regarding their tactics and gameplay. Much of this information will be coming from the wiki, as well as my own view of each faction. This will mainly be directed towards single-player campaigns for the time being. As this is the first video of the series, I'd like to point out that I'm rather new to these kinds of videos, so please bear with me for any mistakes and let me know below in the comments what you'd like to see improved on. With that out of the way, let's get into it. The Kingdom of Vlandia is a kingdom in Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord. It is ruled by King Durthert and occupies the western forests and coastal plains of the Colradian continent. The Vlandian Kingdom, named after the early warlord Willand the Bold, Vlandian and Caldratic, begins as a large number of barbarian tribes who migrated into former Britannian lands during the waning periods of the Colradic Empire. The Empire was at war on all sides, so it offered these new barbarian tribes land grants in exchange for mercenary work. Unfortunately, this gave Vlandian nobility a taste for Empire lands, and they united under King Osrak Ironarm to conquer the far west of the Empire and declare themselves an independent nation. Militarily, the Vlandians are best known for the powerful, well-armored heavy cavalry units who charge with couch lances. They also field well-trained crossbowmen, and their troops start with 20% more experience from each battle. They start with slightly more territory than other factions, but are vulnerable to internal dissent. Vlandia is the predecessor to the Kingdom of Swadia in Warband. In Warband, Vlandia's old and more expansive land is split between the Vrodoks, who rebelled and split off from Swadia, the Swadians in central Vlandia, and the Nords who were able to take a portion of northern Vlandia. Charas, in the south, is Serenid territory in Warband, presumably the predecessor to the Serenid capital of Chariz. In Mount & Blade Bannerlord 2, every faction has access to several trees within the campaign. Vlandia is unique in its aspect that not only does it have a main and noble tree, it also has a secondary and tertiary tree. However, we'll be focusing mainly on the main and noble trees first before moving into the other two. Starting with the main troop tree, we'll work our way down the ranged unit first as a form of a consistent outline. Starting us out, as always, is the recruit at tier 1. With no armor and only a sword, they have wages of 1 dinar per day and are generally cheap cannon fodder to be quickly upgraded if not killed first. The first ranged unit is a key strength unique to Vlandia with immediate access to crossbows at tier 2. Starting that off is the Vlandian Levy crossbow with wages of 2 dinar per day and a cost of upgrade of 15 dinar. The next up in line is the tier 3 Vlandian crossbow. They come with better armor and weaponry, both ranged and melee, with wages of 5 dinar per day and a cost of upgrade of 25 dinar. At tier 4 is what uniquely sets apart the Vlandian crossbows from any other faction, as with the Vlandian hardened crossbowmen, that comes equipped with better armor and weaponry for both ranged and melee, with the addition of the Provice shield unique to Vlandian crossbowmen. They stand at a wage of 7 dinars per day, with a cost of upgrade of 50 dinar. Finally, at tier 5, we have the Vlandian sharpshooter with better armor and weaponry, both ranged and melee, with the addition of the Provice shield unique to Vlandian crossbowmen, with wages of 12 dinar per day and a final upgrade of 100 dinar. Vlandian crossbowmen have no pikes or spears for anti-cav, but the unexpected shield wall or shock troops of sharpshooters might carry the day if you have enough of them and if they've been able to stay unengaged for most of the combat of the battle. Returning our attention back to the center of the tree, we will follow the branch of the Vlandian footmen at tier 2. Armed with better armor and a spear, they have wages of 2 dinar per day with a cost upgrade of 15 dinar. The path splits again, so we'll follow our trend of continuing moving down the left branch first. We encounter the Vlandian spearmen at tier 3, with better armor and a shield with a spear, and a daily wage of 5 dinar. Following that, at tier 4, is the Vlandian billman, with better armor, no shield, but equipped with a billhook which is excellent against enemy shields, unarmed infantry, and cavalry, with a daily wage of 7 dinar. At tier 5, the path splits again, between the Vlandian Voljeux, with better armor, and replacing the billhook with a two-handed poleaxe/bardician throwing axes, with a daily wage of 10 dinar, and the Vlandian pikeman with heavy armor, and replacing the billhook yet again with a spear and a daily wage of 10 dinar. Units in this branch tend to be best equipped for anti-cavalry actions, but are highly susceptible to range fire due to a lack of shields, and are best used in protection of your ranged units or crossbows until any ranged units are eliminated or occupied enough to move in to assist the front line after enemy cav has been neutralized. Turning our attention back to the right-hand side of the main troop tree, we return to Tier 3 with the Vlandian infantry, who are equipped with better armor and a shield with a spear and a daily wage of 5 dinar. Here, the tree splits again to the first cavalry units or heavy line troops. Starting with the Vlandian light cavalry at Tier 4, these are the first mounted troops with medium armor and spears for skirmishes with enemy cavalry or anti-ranged unit harassment with a daily wage of 7 dinar. At Tier 5, we have the Vlandian vanguards, which are heavily armored shock cavalry with lances. These are shock cavalry with the ability to stay in the fight for extended periods of time with a daily wage of 12 dinars. Returning back to the infantry side, at Tier 4 comes in the Vlandian swordsmen with better armor and armament, advanced troops to hold lines and cut down enemies, and a daily wage of 7 dinar. Finally, finishing off, is the Vlandian sergeants. These are the top armored infantry armed with maces, spears, a shield, and throwing axes, and are the anchor in any army and will hold the line against waves of foes. Their daily wage is 12 dinars. My favorite unit is tied between the Vulgaires for the deadly shock attacks on enemy shields, or sergeants because they look so damn cool and remind me of the great deal of the Swadian Knights from Warband. On the far right side here we have the Noble branch. For Vlandia is notable that it has several units in a single tree that can be recruited, all of which are variations of light to medium to heavy cavalry consisting of harassed to shock cavalry as it progresses down the tree. At Tier 2 is the Vlandian Squire, which is lightly armored and armored. They are swift and can maneuver behind enemy lines to harass and delay enemies, but are too weak on their own to engage in direct combat. At Tier 3 is the Vlandian Gallant, which is better armed and equipped. They're still fast, but able to engage in combat more and primarily using rear charges and anti-ranged unit actions. At Tier 4 is the Vlandian Knight, the core of cavalry engagements with heavily armored troops, and mounts that can both take and deal out damage to enemy units in shock engagements. At Tier 5 is the Vlandian Champion, an excellent bodyguard unit for you and your companions. They rarely break and will fight by your side until they fall or you do, sometimes even more afterwards. Finishing in at Tier 6 is the Vlandian Banner Knight, a somewhat legendary unit. Their armor and arms are used skillfully on the field to finish out a well-rounded heavy shock cavalry contingent. These noblemen will fight and slay your enemies as long as they stand. The Noble branch is limited in its units, but they are extremely useful even when defending or attacking during the siege. Use them to protect important positions or assault enemy flanks for swift victories. Finally, the last two branches of the Vlandian troop tree are completed by units which can be obtained through campaign actions, such as capturing and recruiting these units or rescuing them from imprisonment from other armies. These consist of boar crossbowmen from the Company of the Golden Boar, and the only archer units available to native Vlandia from the Brotherhood of the Woods. Note that these troops can sometimes be found in the employ of bandits as well, so there is the option to obtain them there as well. I personally don't have a need to seek these units out as they're not readily available, and compared to the standard Vlandian crossbowmen, or obtaining archers from other factions is much easier, not to mention cost effective. However, I won't turn them away if I have need of men in my army, and they are recruitable. In summary, Vlandia has the strength of powerful lancer cavalry available from both common branches and the noble troop tree, as well as a dedicated branch of crossbowmen providing early access to well-equipped and powerful ranged troops. All infantry options include access to polearms, which reduce vulnerability to enemy cavalry units, and have an economically balanced and dense settled home region. However, their weaknesses do lie in the fact that they have a lack of horse archers, and they're relying completely on crossbows instead of bow archers, which reduces effectiveness against numerous infantry. Some troops also lack alternative equipment options like throwing weapons, despite having room for them. And their home territory only has one horse farm, and is partially plagued by sea raiders. In overall summary, Vlandian forces pack a powerful 1-2 punch delivered by their crossbowmen and heavy cavalry charges. Since Vlandian troop lines have access to lancers by both the common troop tree and the noble recruits, they always have access to either elite or regular lancers. However, in Vlandian lands, there is only a single horse farm in the south, meaning that Vlandian barons and mercenaries probably need to travel to other lands to replenish their supply of war horses. Fortunately, their chosen war mounts are of sturdy stock, and the knight's average speed and protection and long lances allow for relatively high survivability and reduced casualties. Curiously, conventional military troops of Vlandia do not train in the use of bow and arrow. They rely exclusively on infantry crossbowmen, which reduces their mobility as opposed to horse archers, and capability of continuous rain of fire, but allows for powerful synchronized volley fire to be used against enemy lines. Vlandian crossbowmen are also available very early, and higher tier variants possess larger shields to protect themselves in close combat. Together with their billmen, which are effective against shields, sergeants, and volgeurs, who all possess polearms and backup weapons, Vlandian defensive formations can be a tough nut to crack, but they may be unable to decisively act if their heavily cavalry support or crossbow fire is disrupted by horse archers or other multi-pronged attacks. Thank you all for watching this video. Please let me know what you think down below, and if you would like me to continue the series onward. Halit or Yish al Tadin.